everybody. This is Mike Riker. Welcome to Top of the Hops, episode 5. And joining me today, I'm so excited. He's one of my oldest and dearest friends. We actually met in high school back in 1986, I think it was, or 87.
86.
This is one of my dearest friends. His name is Miguel Rosell. Miguel, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, pal, it's good to be with you, man.
I
Thanks
love it.
so much for having me on.
Yeah, listen, it's an absolute honor. I love having you on. We've been friends for a long time. I remember the first time I met you was in homeroom class. You were you were doing this thing with yeah, yes, you were interviewing Mike Roy, who one of he works in sports and all kinds of Fox and all kinds of stuff, and you were interviewing him. Going back and forth with the microphone, man. And I'm like, oh my God, what have I got myself into? But you were so friendly from the outgo, and we became fast friends. And
Yeah.
I treasure our friendship. So this is a pleasure for me, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the kind words, Mike. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. This morning, I knew we were gonna jump on this call, and I just started thinking, it's 2023. We're rapidly approaching like 40 years of friendship.
Yeah,
So pretty
absolutely.
wild.
Yeah, and it's funny. Some of the things that we bonded on was obviously sports.
Yeah,
We're both big Knicks and Rangers fans, and this might be I want to dive into this maybe in a future episode, but I don't know if you know this or not. You are the person that actually got me into hockey. I never watched hockey before. I came from Louisiana. Hockey's not the biggest thing in Louisiana.
no way.
So you guys actually got me into hockey, and it wasn't the '94 Rangers. It was actually the '92 Rangers that you got me into, where they obviously lost to the Penguins in that game with was it Adam Graves who made that guy cross check Kasperitis, I think it was, or
I think so. My
yeah.
memory's a little foggy, but
Yeah, but there was they had, I think they had one of the best records in the league that year, and they were going to win that cup, and they lost. And then the following year, they actually didn't make the playoffs, and hired Mike Keenan. And of course, we know that '94 was the magical season. But yeah, you were the first person that actually got me into Rangers hockey.
nice, nice. Well, part of me wants to apologize because I guess you were spoiled early on. You became a fan in
Yes,
'92.
yeah,
You had a Stanley Cup in '94,
right.
and
I'm thinking, how many more cups can we win now? Let's go.
we're
Still waiting for the
rapidly
next one.
approaching 30 years since that cup. So,
Right.
yeah, it's a lot of suffering being a Knicks and Rangers fan for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. So, one of the other things that we bonded on, which will be our topic today, is Honeymooners episodes. So, I don't even know how did you get into the Honeymooners? Do you remember like watching it for the first time?
Absolutely. I don't remember exactly when, but it was definitely during our high school years. So
Okay,
it was during the period of 84 through 88. So probably like 84, 85.
right.
Um, so I'm in LA now, but born and raised in New York, and obviously that's where we met.
Hmm.
And so for those of you from New York, Channel 11, WPIX. Let's see, I used to be a night owl ever since I was a little kid. And so certainly in high school, like I used to stay up till like past midnight. And so on Channel 11, like after the news programs at, let's see, at 11 p.m., it was The Odd Couple, that great
That's
show with
right. Yes.
Jack Klugman and Tony Randall. That was a classic.
Yes. Great.
And then based on the Neil Simon play, about the
Hmm.
same title. And then the Honeymooners came on at 11:30, and then Star Trek, the original Star Trek, was
Oh
on.
wow.
So I would watch those three programs, but that's how I got into the Honeymooners.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny with me. Mine started a little earlier, but not. I didn't watch as much because, I lived in Louisiana for 20 years, and we didn't get the honeymooners, so I had no concept of what they were. I do remember my parents talking a little bit about Jackie Gleason. In fact, Jackie Gleason has a little bit of uh, influence into Elvis. I'm a huge Elvis fan. A little influence into Elvis's career. That's really all I knew about Jack Gleason. But my mom and I used to take summer trips to New York for 4 or 5 straight years when I was 10 years old. So from 10 to like 13, 14, we would take trips to New York to visit my aunt, and we would stay about a month. And I would stay up at night with my mom, and she would have the honeymooners on. And even at the age of 11, the first episode I remember was the golf episode, where he's saying hello ball. So that just like, oh my God, this is hilarious. Even at 11, I was laughing. And then so when I finally moved to New York, in high school, I loved it. I just like you said, I would stay up nights too as well, especially on Fridays, and I would just keep watching Honeymooners. And of course now with New Year's Eve and New Year's Day with the marathons that they have, I just been I still laugh even today. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, it's really classic comedy. Wow, so you got into it before I did. Yeah, so does Channel 11 PIX, do they still, are they the ones that do the marathon on New
They are,
Year's?
yeah, they still do the marathons. It starts exactly at midnight on New Year's Eve, which is great. So, as everybody else is watching the ball drop, I got, I got Channel 11 on. Forget the ball. I want to see what Cramden and Norton are doing right now. So, yeah,
Uh,
it's funny because, my mom, I know one Christmas bought me the entire VHS tapes, and for those who are not huge Honeymooners fans, there's what's called the original 39. So there's 39 episodes. Yes, there's these lost episodes that get, but we're going to focus on the original 39. So,
yeah, yeah, totally.
but just this was a hard top five for me, Miguel. It was like I went back and forth and changed my order, and I still don't know if I have the right order in my opinion, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
I mean, there are so many brilliant episodes, but I've got my five pretty locked down, and
yeah,
I'm guessing we'll have a couple that like overlap.
yeah, I think so too. I think so too. But first, obviously, this show is called Top of the Hops. We're gonna dive into some beer right now. So Miguel, what do you got for us today?
All right, bud. So today I have a Sapporo
Oh, I love Sapporo.
lager from Japan.
Beautiful.
This is actually one of my favorite beers.
Okay, so you've definitely dived into it. I love Sapporo. Every time I go, have some sushi or something, a good Sapporo with it is a
Big
perfect
time, yeah.
balance. Yeah.
Yeah, love it with sushi. Typically, when I go to any kind of ethnic restaurant, I like to get a beer from that country. So, if I go
Hmm.
for Middle Eastern, if they have like a Lebanese beer, I like to get that. Or if I go, a Greek restaurant. So yeah, yeah. So I'm
That's
just pouring my Sapporo here.
nice. Very nice. Nice
And
color.
yeah, it's a really pale, light golden color. And there's a really nice amount of carbonation too,
Hmm.
which is really nice.
And what's Sapporo's like considered a lager? Does it say on there or
It is a lager, and
okay?
I got some fun facts for you.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
So Sapporo was actually first brewed in 1876.
Wow.
It's actually Japan's oldest beer, and it was brewed. I got the guy's name right here, Saibe Nakagawa. Hope I didn't butcher that. I think I got the last name right. So anyway, he was Sapporo's first brewmaster.
Mm.
He actually left Japan at 17, ended up in Germany, and that he actually studied and mastered the craft of brewing.
Wow.
And so he came back to Japan, and yeah, he was the first one to brew it.
That's tremendous. Yeah, I always like Sapporo. It's one of the early ones of my beer excursion. I've said this a couple of times on these shows. Like, I really didn't get into beer until I reached the age of 40. Like, I would try beers here and there in my 30s, but I never liked it. I was always, Bud and Miller Lite. And to me, it was just like drinking water.
Yeah, yeah, no
But
doubt.
one of the first beers I had that really got me into beers was Blue Moon and Sam Adams Cherry Wheat, but also Sapporo was another one I really liked early on as well. And so that's a great beer to have. It's very light. I've always liked that beer. Very easy to drink.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Are you a big beer drinker or just more of you're more a wine drinker? Or what's your preference?
So again, I love beer and wine, and again, I really practice moderation with
Yeah, me too. I agree.
both of
Yeah.
those beverages. So typically, when I'm out to dinner, I like to have one or the other.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and at home, I'll only like serve alcohol, if I'm making a special dinner.
Mm.
I like to, if I'm doing like, let's say, a several course menu, I like to like pair each course with a specific wine.
Oh,
And
nice.
so really, I don't really do too much beer at home, but certainly when I go out, It's something that I enjoy.
Yeah, I love beer. I don't drink during the week when I'm working, but on weekends I like to dive with two or three. Just love a taste of it. So today you had Japanese beer, and I have actually an Italian beer. It's from a brewery here in Brooklyn. It's an Italian American Pilsner, and it's actually called Gabagol
Oh my
or
God.
Capicola.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
so it's actually not made with Capicola. It's just name it for it, and it's an Italian style Pilsner. And I've been getting to these lately. They're very light. They're like 4.9%. So they drink very light, very smooth. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a great pourer, but I will try here. Um, it pours very golden. A lot of carbonation as you see here. Very light, almost syrupy in a way, but it doesn't taste syrup. It's very light. And actually, when you smell it, it's weird. It's got an Italian herb like essence to it, but when you drink it, it's very refreshing. It's yeast like, so you have that like bread type taste to it, but it's very refreshing. So Miguel, here's to you.
Oh, cheers.
Uh, Cheers to you.
Good to be with you.
That goes down really smooth, very nice. So the Italian Pilsner, just I have my own facts here, uh, are essentially more aromatic versions of German Pilsners, but their signature characteristic is they dry hop, which means they steep the lager with hops, and after the brewing process is done, they add a ton of flavor. They add a ton of flavor with this bitterness and some sweetness to it. So it's like a German Pilsner, but it's a little bit more sweeter than a German. So I've been drinking a lot of these. Actually, me and my wife went brewery hopping yesterday and had a couple of Italian style pilsners. So that's been kind of like my go-to over these past couple of weeks.
Definitely, when I drink this beer, you get a touch of citrus and
Hmm,
sweetness up
right.
front, and then there's a touch of bitterness on the finish. So it's one of the reasons I love the beer so much because it's really well rounded and well
Yes,
balanced.
that is.
And it is extremely drinkable and refreshing. Sometimes beer, like for me, especially like the wheat beers, like for me, it can have a little bit of a medicinal taste.
At times it does. Yeah, especially when you go to like a fruity wheat beer, that can happen sometimes if it's not done correctly.
Yeah, yeah, and that for me is unpleasant. But well, it's good to know. I guess you really know your stuff. Obviously you've really learned a lot about beer. I guess about over the last 14, 15
Yeah,
years.
I'm still a novice. I don't read too much about it. I like to drink more than than I do about researching it, but I have been learning a little bit more here and there. And it's funny, we talked about this before we got on the air today, and that's, we went brewery hopping, me and my wife, and breweries are so much, it's like the craze around, especially here in New York, in Brooklyn itself. We were in Brooklyn yesterday. We had three breweries within a mile radius of each other, and there's 15 breweries actually in Brooklyn that does very well. And and there's this one that's strictly owned by women. It's called Talia, and they put out some great beers yesterday. And they actually did a whole thing of sours. I'm a big sour guy, and it was all pink, so it was called the Barbie collection. So me and my wife actually had some sours from this
Sweet.
brewery. But yeah, Brooklyn right now is kind of like a real hot point when it comes to breweries. It's been great experience yesterday. We had a good time.
Amazing. I mean, obviously I knew about Brooklyn, what is it, Brooklyn beer, right? Or
Brooklyn Brewery, and we
Brooklyn
also have,
Brewery.
and you probably heard of Coney Island Brewery.
I have, but I
Yeah,
had no idea that it exploded so much.
yeah, it's amazing. And then even out in Long Island, there are so many breweries out in Long Island that just keep popping up. Is still a little behind. We have a couple here and there.
Yeah.
Most of the breweries in Queens are out in Long Island City. They have some really great ones there. But as far as like where I'm at and where we used to be out in Jackson Heights and Astoria, it seems like they haven't really popped up yet. So it's gonna be interesting over the next couple of years if that starts happening, because places like Brooklyn, I mean, these places were packed yesterday. I mean, on a nice summer day, we're
Yeah,
out,
yeah,
everybody's outside and drinking, and it's not a bar experience, it's a brewery experience, and it's
yeah,
much
totally.
different. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's much different.
absolutely.
Have you been to any breweries out in California?
It's funny you mentioned that because like literally 3 or 4 blocks from me, and I'm actually in Long Beach, which is what, like right south of LA.
Okay.
But there's a really nice, microbrewery. Is that what you call them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like 3 or 4 blocks from here, called the Long Beach Beer Lab.
Okay.
And I've been there a handful of times. I've lived in Long Beach. It's actually going on 6 years now.
Okay.
So I've been there a handful of times. I went recently when my sister-in-law was staying with us for a bit. But yeah, they do a phenomenal job, and it's always packed. The
Yeah.
5 times I've gone there.
Yeah. So what kind of beers do you gravitate to? Is it one like you're drinking now, or is
Well,
one ones do you like more IPAs? What's your favorite?
I like the Lagners, the lagers. I like Pilsners, right?
Yep.
And I do enjoy a stout. Like I'm a big Guinness fan.
Okay. Yes,
You know,
that's where we differ a little bit. So I'm not the biggest dark beer fan. So I feel, but I'll try anything. So like if I see something on the board that I like, I'll try it. I'm not the biggest coffee person, so I don't like the taste of coffee. And actually, a lot of stouts, as you
yeah,
know, have that coffee kind of like presence to it.
totally.
But if I see something stout that's more sweetener, like chocolate or coconut, they use a lot for stouts. I'll gravitate towards that.
Nice.
But as far as drinking like 2 or 3 stouts, or like I drink one and I'm like I'm done for the day. Stouts gonna get pretty heavy,
Yeah,
especially when you hit the ABVs of like 10% or over.
yeah, totally. Yeah. So yes, so stouts definitely have more a higher alcohol content, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. You
Would
look
you
at like
say that are they the highest? Do they have the highest content?
they do. Usually I would say an average ABV is like a 5%. So like what I'm drinking now is 4.9. So it's like right there at the average. Um, but once you get into double digits, you're gonna feel it after you drink one of those. So and you notice it right away. It's got more of an alcoholic level to it. But yeah, listen, like I said, I'm just not a coffee fan, so that's why I don't gravitate towards stouts. But
Makes
like
sense.
there was one yesterday on the board that looked interesting. It was like a coconut chocolate vanilla type, and that looked really good. And that's something I would definitely taste. But I don't know if I can have 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
that's a lot. It's really, it can get really heavy.
I'm guessing it's the same in your neck of the woods now, but I know that this brewery, like you can get flights.
Yes, that flight's my favorite. Yeah, I love
Okay.
sampling. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't like just getting one, because if I don't like it, then what's the point? Sometimes what I'll do is I'll have a flight. If there's one I really really enjoy, then maybe I'll get a pint of that and drink that for the rest of the day. But yeah, when we went, me and Nicole, we went to 3 different breweries, had 3 different flights, and we
nice.
just we just so I felt like I had, which I did. We had 12 different beers, so
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
great, so it was a good experience. So
Awesome.
yeah, so here's to you.
Oh yeah, cheers.
The toast, very similar in color. Yours a little darker. Very good. Okay, so we talked about the honeymooners, we gave you a preview. That's our topic for today. Top 5 honeymooners episodes, our favorites. So how it starts here, Miguel will start number 5, then we'll come to me. We'll go back and forth. So Miguel, you start off. Let's go with number 5. Which number 5
Yeah.
episode?
So for me, number 5 is an episode entitled "Opportunity Knocks,"
Hmm.
and so this is actually the episode where, Ralph is done with his shift, and he's outside of For those of you who don't know, Jackie Gleason plays Ralph Cramden, who's a bus driver. So Ralph has finished work, and he's standing outside. A coworker comes out and like talks to him, and then all of a sudden, the head of the bus company, Mr. Marshall, comes out, and so they meet up and they start talking. Ralph is very nervous. When Ralph gets nervous, he can stir a bit, like humming, 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 humming. And so anyway, Ralph is talking to Mr. Marshall, and somehow or another they get onto the topic that he just bought his own pool table. And then Ralph's sidekick, Art Carney, who plays Norton at Norton, he comes by, and anyway, it turns out that Mr. Marshall is going to get a pool lesson from Ralph. I guess he asks him, right, to give him up a
Right.
list.
Yes.
But then Norton shows up and Norton's like, oh, but we had a date to play pool. And Mr. Marshall's like, oh, no, 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 I don't want to interrupt your game. But eventually, like, why don't you two come to my house? And, I can learn by watching you two play.
Right.
So that's it. So you totally remember that one, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great episode. That and of course it turns around where hopefully Cramden's hopefully that he talks to Mr. Marshall and he can get more in with Mr. Marshall and get a promotion. And what happens is Norton starts talking about Cramden's ideas to Mr. Marshall and actually offers Norton the job instead of Ralph's. So it actually turns itself around. It's a great episode. Some great, especially when they're playing pool. When Mr. Marshall is, he can't hit the cue ball. Oh, but you're getting better at it. It's like he's trying to hit it. That's a great
Oh, I
episode.
think one of them are like, I forgot if it's Ralph or Norton who's like, and you said you would. No, I think it was Ralph. He's like, and you said you were just a beginner.
Yeah, right.
And Mr. Marshall is, but I missed. And Ralph's
Right.
like, but you came so close.
Right, exactly.
Norton's got the job. Ralph is like incensed. He's fuming. He's back in his apartment with Alice, and he feels betrayed, and like he like wants to, he wants to give Norton the boot as a friend. And so then, Norton comes down and he's like, Ralph, I'm going to be working there. It might be a little uncomfortable. So I think in the beginning, it might be better if you called me Mr. Norton. You see Ralph's face. He turns all red. Alice has to intervene. And she's like, Ed, it's a very informal place. I don't think there's any need for that. And so Norton's like, it's kind of scary how I've memorized some of these episodes.
Oh, no, you're brilliant at this, Miguel. You're brilliant.
And then Alice is like, oh, no. Then Ed is like, Alice, you're right. Maybe you should just call me E.N. And Ralph's ready to kill him.
Oh, my God.
He's ready to kill him. And ultimately, what ends up happening is that, Ralph gives him the boot. He's like, get out of here. And then eventually, and then Ralph goes through this identity crisis. We're like, oh, I'm a loser, blah, blah, blah. Norton comes back and realizes that all the ideas that he had were actually ideas that Ralph came up with, that Norton just said it in a different way. So he takes ownership of that. He tells Ralph, hey, look, we're going down there on Monday. I'm going to tell Mr. Marshall that all those ideas are your ideas. They make up, and that's about it. You never end up, it never goes any farther than that. One of the things about, the Honeymooners is that Ralph is such a big dreamer and he has all these ideas, but unfortunately he's never able to like hit on anything,
Right. You're gonna hear that theme hits a lot in these episodes as we go through these top five. So that's a great number 5. My number 5 is actually an episode where there are funnier episodes, but for some reason to me it's more sentimental to me than funny. But I just love this episode. It's the episode called Young at Heart, where this teenage girl comes down to Alice and wants this young boy to meet him at Alice's house because she doesn't want the father to meet him. So she's going ice skating and they're going bop dancing, and of course Ralph comes home and she wants to do all this stuff. He comes home, he's like, can you make me dinner fast? I want to get to bed. And she just wants to go and relive her youth again. And of course he makes fun of her, and there's this great scene. And I think Alice is actually the star of this episode. There's this great scene where it's kind of a little emotional, where she kind of, him and Ed are kind of making fun of her. Oh, look, I'm 14 years old, but she starts almost crying, where she's like, I'm sorry that I made, I won't be embarrassed again. I forget what that speech was, but she put out this great speech about, I will never do this again. I won't be young again. Don't worry about it. I won't mention this ever again. She slams the door, and you can see Ralph's face drop, like, oh my God, what did I just do? And of course, that leads to Ralph now wants to take her out. Norton comes down the stairs, brings over the record player. Of course, one of my favorite scenes ever. Of course, they do the Hucklebuck, which is this unbelievable dance, and it shows the greatness of both of these guys. The way Ed Norton dances. He's very wiry, very skinny, and then of course you got the big the big lovable Ralph Cramden, who's trying to shake his hips, and one of the great lines that waddle like a duck. Oh, how do I walk like a duck? Just walk like you used to. Like, so. But some great episodes, and an interesting fact about that episode, they actually filled that episode with mostly teenagers, so they have more of a reaction to the episode. So if you hear it faintly, you'll hear a lot of teenagers yelling and screaming and clapping during that episode. And of course, Ralph again, the skating rink shows his, how he does, physical comedy where he slips and falls and brings Norton and the girls down with him. And of course, at the end, he talks about how much the youth is wasted on the young, and has this great speech. And Alice, who again is brilliant in this episode. When Ralph says that he wants to take her dancing, the look on her face is she couldn't be the happiest woman in the world. Like I said, there are funnier episodes, but for me, this always pulled at the heartstrings for me. I love this one. This comes in at number 5 for me.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for actually bringing that up. That's one that I had kind of forgotten about.
Mm-hmm.
And, but once you started talking about it, it came to me. I've seen all the episodes like several times,
Right.
And, that actually was really a sweet episode. And, ultimately, they were each other's sweethearts.
Yes, absolutely.
And here's another fun fact for you. First of all, the way you mentioned, Art Carney and Jackie Gleason, they were both incredibly talented performers.
Oh God,
actors,
yeah, brilliant.
And believe it or not, Ralph actually composed the theme from the Honeymooners.
Oh, really? I did not know. Wow.
Yeah, and it's actually entitled "You're My Greatest Love."
Jackie Gleason, The Honeymooners, with the stars Art Carney, Audrey Meadows, and Joyce Randolph.
Okay.
Ultimately, it's a sitcom. It's a hilarious sitcom, but it's about friendship, the friendship between Ralph and Ed. But it's also, the romance and the love between Ralph and Alice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so Gleason didn't know how to read or write music, but he was able to compose melodies in his head. Then he would just describe it to somebody who was adept with that. And then they would just work out the music.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a great fact. Yeah. So that's definitely one of my favorites. All right, let's go to number 4. What we got number 4?
All right, so for me, you'll definitely know this one. It's an episode entitled "The Bensonhurst Bomber."
Yes. Okay. Yes.
And so I'll give a brief summary. So that's the episode where Ralph and Ed are going to play pool. They get to the pool hall. They start playing on a table, and then another patron comes by, sort of like a small, skinny guy, with kind of a little bit of a mousy voice. And he tells Ralph and Norton, "Hey, me and my friend Harvey, we're going to play, we were going to use this table." And Ralph, he ends up being a little bit of a bully, and he kind of shoos him away. I think there's one of the funny lines from that is he's like, "I'm going to tell my friend Harvey, and he's bigger than me." And then I forgot what Ralph said. "Oh, my friend Shirley is bigger than you."
Yes.
So, Ralph is thinking, it's going to be another small guy like this. So anyway, I forgot the little guy's name, but he goes and he gets his friend Harvey, and Harvey is this big guy, bigger than Ralph.
Yes.
And he seems like a bit of a goon. And then so all of a sudden, Ralph is he just clamps up, and he's totally scared. And ultimately, that guy bullies Ralph, and he walks away in shame.
Not to interrupt you, one of the great lines in that one by Norton is too, "He's even bigger than your friend Shirley."
But Norton, that's right. Norton is the one who gets him.
Yeah, he instigates it. Yes, he instigates the
He's
fight.
the
Yeah.
one who gets
He'll
Ralph.
be there. Just make sure you're there.
That's right. So then, all right. So now it's all come back to me. Ralph is obviously nervous, but then he comes up with this scheme with Norton, where Norton is going to bring a coworker from the sewer who's a big guy, and they're going to just do like this like fake thing, like an act where Norton's friend will be like, "Hey, get a load of fatso," and then Ralph will like pretend to knock him out in front of Harvey, thinking that Harvey will then like run for the hills. So anyway, he gets to the gym. This guy shows up, really big guy, and says, "Hey, get a load of fatso," in front of Harvey. And Ralph thinks that, hey, this is Norton's friend. So he gears up, he cocks up, and he just punches him, and he knocks him out. And so then Harvey gets completely freaked out, and he hits the road. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was just playing around. And then eventually Norton shows up, and he's looking at the guy who knocked out, and he's like, Ralph is like, "Oh, your friend was amazing. He nailed it."
Yes.
And it's like, "Hey, that's not my friend." So Ralph actually really knocked him out. And so now he gets too big for his britches, and he's like, "Get Harvey back here, yo, Harvey."
Right.
So now he really wants to fight Harvey.
Yeah, that's a brilliant episode. It's not just a teaser. It's not my top 5, but it just missed. It was number 6 on mine, so I just missed that one. But it's a brilliant episode. And you're so right. It's funny about that episode when he knocks the guy out. If you watch it, he comes nowhere near him.
Totally. He ends up grazing his chest. I actually remember that because it was so bad.
Yeah, it was bad.
Remember, it was live TV, so
right.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a brilliant episode. And every time I hear Harvey, a guy's named Harvey, that's the first thing I think of is Harvey. You listen, and of course he hits the bag, hurts himself. But yeah,
well, I'm a long-suffering Mets fan.
Yeah.
And I remember when Matt Harvey pitched for them last decade.
That's right.
There was a lot of references to that.
I'm sure. Brilliant number 4, Miguel. I love that one. Like I said, it just missed mine. Number 4 for me is another one again where it's not about the humor. It's very funny, but again, it's the sweetness. Listen, I'm a stickler for Christmas. I love Christmas. I love Christmas episodes, and this one is one of my favorite Christmas episodes as far as all comedies, and that's "Twas the Night Before Christmas." I love this episode so much. It's got so many twists and turns to it. So Ralph, obviously wants to buy Alice a gift. So he buys this gift. He gets suckered in with the matchboxes stuck together. It holds bobby pins and little things like that, little trinkets, and he's going to give to Alice. But of course, he buys it because he doesn't have that much money because he bought himself a bowling ball, and then of course at the end she buys him the bowling ball bag. But then all of a sudden, this neighbor comes down, not knowing much of Alice, but they talk a little bit, and she gives him a gift, and it's the same exact gift that Ralph got, which is the matchboxes glued together with that holds bobby pins and stuff like that. And so, of course, he gets embarrassed and doesn't know what to do. And more twists and turns. Uncle Leo comes down, and Alice is not there, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, a $25 gift certificate to Marshalls," and he figures, "Oh, I'll go to Marshalls. I'll get her a gift for $25." But of course, she comes down and she's like, "Oh, guess who I ran into? I know who you ran to. You ran to Uncle Leo. Oh, Uncle Leo was here? No, I ran to Tommy Miller down the block. He's home from the army." And so again, he's stuck again. So
he ratted himself out.
Right, he ratted himself out. So at the end of the day, he buys him. Earlier in the episode, Norton buys Trixie, his wife, Napoleon, orange juicer, where you put the oranges on Napoleon's head and the juice flies out of the ears. So that's what ends up Cramden getting Alice for Christmas at the end. But it's a brilliant episode. Like I said, a lot of twists and turns. One of the funny things I love is Norton and Cramden exchange gifts, and they both think it's the same gift. And it's like, "Oh, I guess we got each other ties, huh?" He's like, "I didn't get you any tie." "Oh, what did you get me? A pair of spats." You know what? It's like, where am I going to put spats? You know, how do I get a guy who has everything? You know, of course, yeah. So, just a great episode. And what I love is the ending. So there's two great endings to this. One is the actual ending of the show where, Ralph has this great speech about Christmas, about how you walk through the city and you even if you bump into someone, they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Merry Christmas," and the snow is falling down, and everybody's like hustling but smiling. And then the show closes, and then he comes out of character and opens the curtains and introduces himself. He's like, "I want to say Merry Christmas to everybody," and invites Norton down, which I love. I love that he took that, broke the fourth wall, so to speak. But
Yeah.
I love that episode. So many twists and turns. So that to me is my number four. It was Night Before Christmas.
Yeah, and again, yeah, thanks for bringing that one back to mind for me because again, it's not one that I even considered, but
No, I get it.
as you started talking about it, I completely remembered, and that last thing at the end where they all come out,
That's why I love.
pretty sure that's the only time they did that. So that
Right.
kind of makes that episode unique, with the four main characters. But yeah, it had that sweet. Not only did it have that that sweet Christmas message, right? But it was also again highlighting the connection between like Ed and Ralph, and
Yes.
also highlighting the love between Ralph and Alice. And
Yes. Absolutely.
ultimately Alice was really touched by it. Talk about like it's the thought that counts because the juicer with the
Yeah.
bird with the juice coming out of the ears. For Alice, it was she got it's the thought that counts, and she sensed how much like Ralph really loved her.
And at the end, of course, he sells the bowling ball to get her this Napoleon gift. And of
Right,
course, she gets
right,
him the bowling bag. He's got no ball to put it in.
right. That's right.
Which
That's
is
right.
great too. But and one of my favorite things about it is, of course, Graham is sitting there all, despondent, doesn't know what to get her. And there's Norton decorating the tree, and he's flipping it behind his back. He's throwing it, and it's just typical greatness out of our Carney. So that was my number four. All right,
Nice.
number three. What do we got here, Miguel? Number three.
All right, number three for me is the episode entitled "The Worry Wart," also known as the tax episode, and that that one always got me. And even when I think about it, and by the way, and that's I just want to point out that like I, I'm guessing the people who end up watching this are going to be like Honeymooners fans, and if anyone stumbles upon this episode and has never seen them. Um, check them out because it's, I think like classic music, like great music that endures the test of time. I think classic comedy, like, I know for us in the 90s, right? Growing, like, I guess in our 20s, it was like Seinfeld and Friends,
Yes.
and like those were like amazing comedies. And, I still watch those episodes. For me, it's the same with the Honeymooners, So anyway, so this episode, anytime I think about it, it's just, and it's one of the ones that I'll like, I'll repeat like with you or
Yes.
with our good friend Ari or with my father-in-law who's a big Honeymooners fan. Anyway, so a brief synopsis. Oh God, I get such a kick out of it. Ralph comes home from work and Norton's already there and it's dinner time. And so
Right.
Ralph's going through the mail and he sees an envelope from the IRS. So he's very excited because it's his tax refund. And he's excited because he wanted to use it for this vacation he had planned with Alice at like Fred's Landing or Fishing and Landing. It was a fishing trip. When he mentions that, Alice is like, oh my God, that's the last thing she wants to do is like go camping and fishing, right? So anyway, he opens it up and it's not his tax return. It's actually a letter saying, "Dear Mr. Cramden, please come down to our office. We need to see you." And so again, it's entitled "The Worry Wart" because all of a sudden Ralph goes into his head and thinks, what do they want with me?
Right.
And so he freaks out, they're eating dinner. And at one point, he's talking. He's like, what could they want with me? Am I in trouble? And Alice and Ed are trying to appease him. Oh, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. And then there's like a moment of silence. Then Ralph slams the table. What could they possibly want with me? So he's all fired up. And now he starts ranting and raving to Alice. He's like, they're gonna get me, and Norm keeps interrupting him because he's eating. He's like, hey Ralph, you got any chow chow or piccalilli? So Ralph goes over there. He's like, Ralph, you got any ketchup? And finally he's like, Ralph, you got any bread? And then like Ralph's like, come on already. I'm trying to like deal with this, So anyway, fast forward, at one point, Ralph can't sleep. He's up at night. Norm comes down and like they start going over his taxes. And this is one of the funniest bits ever. Like, so they're going over everything together. And I think Ed mentioned that he majored in arithmetic in elementary school.
That's right.
So he starts jotting things down. And so first thing is like, Ed's like, hey, Ralph, what's this amount over here? 392684939. And he's like, that's not an amount. That's my social security number. And Norm's like, I thought it was your weight. And Ralph's like, do you mind telling me why I would put my weight down on my income tax? And Norm's like, I don't know. You're the one that investigated.
Oh, man.
So they go through a few of those. And then there's, of course, the famous, he didn't get a bonus. They just gave him a skinny chicken. So
right.
One skinny chicken. He's riding the skinny chicken, and I won $5 at the three-legged race.
Yes.
And then I won a horse with a clock in its stomach.
One horse with clocks.
One horse with clock in stomach. So he's putting it all down as like, things that he should have declared as income. Anyway, turns out they end up going down to the income, the IRS office. And, the guy's like, oh, no, we just needed, you didn't sign your tax form. And it was that simple. And then Ralph thinks he's like, he got away with murder. And so they walk out, and then he comes back with the guilty conscience, and he tells the IRS guy, I didn't put down the skinny chicken or the hook with the clock in its stomach because I didn't know, but I want to put it down and I want to pay tax on it.
Right. Yeah. That's a great number 3, Miguel. So great number 3 that it's also my number 3.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Think alike.
Yeah, I do. I love it. To me, this is, people, when people talk about great episodes, they talk about certain ones. And I think this one doesn't get mentioned enough. I think this is one of their underrated episodes. You're so right when you said that one of the great scenes of any Honeymooners episodes is them two sitting at that table trying to figure out what Ralph could have done wrong. Oh my God, it is just unbelievable. And you mentioned some of the great lines, with this, him writing down skinny chicken and the social security number. I also love the fact when he goes, hey, Ralph, I got a great idea. Stand on the 18th Amendment. You go, stand on the 18th Amendment. You mean the 5th Amendment? 18th Amendment's for prohibition. No, that's what I meant. Say you were drunk when you filed your taxes. Just unbelievable. The camaraderie between those two. And I was telling this to my wife today. I'm like, Norton's such a great friend. He's always, Ralph is so mean to him at times. But when Ralph needs him in a pinch, he's there for him. So and he was there that day too as well. I love that scene. The two of them at that table is one of the great scenes. You're right. Like I said, it's an underrated one for me. I also love the fact where he's sitting at the table and she's telling him to calm down. I'll make you some warm milk, and he's starting to read the paper. Oh, they're building a road in Tibet. It's going to go from Tibet all the way to Mongolia. Why are they going to? He's just like, again, just like he just couldn't take it anymore. But that was Ralph. Ralph was the worrywart. That's a great number 3, and that's why it's also my number 3 as well. Tremendous.
Nice.
All right, number 2. What we got, Miguel?
All right, number 2. We're getting down to the wire here. Okay, so number 2 for me is an episode called "Better Living Through TV," also known as the Chef of the Future episode. So yeah, just one of the classic episodes. And so the thing about this episode is that it's really sort of like the last part, like sort of like the last scene of it, where, well, let me start with a brief summary of the first part. Basically, again, Ralph always had these harebrained schemes, and he got this opportunity to buy like this kitchen gadget that did like, I don't know, 10 different things, right? And like he bought it from like a friend or a coworker, and like, he thought that, he'd pay $1 for each one, and then he'd sell them for, whatever, $2, whatever it was. He was going to make a killing with this. And I think, Alice gives him a little bit of a hard time, but ultimately he figures out with Norton that he needs to, like do a television commercial because they'll be able to sell them right away or fast rather than going door to door. So
Right.
Ralph and Norton, rather than hiring, Ralph doesn't want to hire an actor to do this because it's going to cost money. Him and Norton are going to be the actors doing the ad. And remember, this was live television, so this
Yes.
wasn't a a pre-recorded commercial. So anyway, I forgot what the show was, but it's the commercial break. They're both dressed as chefs, and Norton is in like the the studio. They have like a phony kitchen for him, and so Ralph is waiting like backstage. So they go to commercial. Red light goes on. Norton's like, "Hey, Ralph, I'm really nervous over here. I don't know you stay so calm back there."
Right.
Meanwhile, Ralph is sweating bullets. You could see the terror on his face. Anyway, commercial starts, and Norton's like a natural. He's pretending like he's chopping some vegetables. He's like, "Oh, hello there." And so he starts addressing the TV audience, and he's like, "And I'm doing all these tasks like pouring an apple and sharpening a knife. Boy, that's really hard work. I wish somebody would invent a tool that would do the work of all of these."
Yes.
And that's Ralph's cue to come in. But he's completely frozen in terror, and he doesn't come out. So Norton's like, "I said, I wish somebody would invent a household gadget that would do the work of all of these. Hello out there."
Pray tell.
So that the TV producer comes out, or the director. He's like, "Come on, go." So Ralph comes out, and he's like, "I'll pretend that this is the gadget." He comes out, and he's like, Norton's like, "Pray tell, who are you?" Oh, and by the way, Norton is the chef of the past, right?
Right.
So
Right.
Jackie Gleason comes out, and he's completely mortified. He's terrified. He can't say anything. He runs out. He gets shoved back in by the director, and eventually he musters the courage to start speaking. But he's like, "Humana, humana, humana."
Right.
And so they go through this whole process. We can certainly go through some of the lines, but it was so hilarious.
Yeah, that's a great one. I love that one. Yeah, it's like I said, that scene of them during that commercial is one of the great scenes in comedy history, not just Honeymooners history, but comedy history. And I think you have an artifact from that episode, right? Like like a little plate or something of that episode. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
my in-laws, John and Kathy, they actually for Christmas, or no, it was for one of my birthdays. They sent me like this decorative like plate, like collectible. Yeah,
Right.
from that episode. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And, they got me an apron, because one of my careers is cooking, and so they got me an apron that says "Chef of the Future."
That's fantastic. Perfect gift, man. Yeah, that's a brilliant episode. My number two is I have a feeling it's gonna be your number one, but it's my number two. And let me tell you something. I had it at number one, I had number two, I had number one. I just went back and forth. It doesn't matter. But to me, number two for me is the $99,000 answer. It's such a brilliant episode. Obviously, everybody knows the actual, of course, the ending. Where Ed Norton's practicing the piano with this one little song. He's, "Why you gotta play that song?" Of course, it ends up being Ed Norton. But of course, if you haven't seen it, obviously he's on a game show. Much like Chef of the Future, he goes on TV. He's actually very, very nervous. So he has little quips here and there. Great lines all over the place. I'm gonna save some for you. I know, because I know you have some
You have a
great lines
feeling.
like that. One of the ones I will say is, I love when he says, "So are you married?" "Yes." "What's your wife's name?" "Mrs. Crampton." Which is unbelievable. Yeah. So just he's nervous. He picks popular songs, and of course, typical Ralph. He's got to go overboard with everything. He's not stopping at $600. He's not stopping at any other price point. He's going all the way to the $99,000 answer. So of course he rents a piano, he buys records, he does all this stuff. He's got neighbors helping him, Mrs. Manicotti from upstairs helping him, brush up on all these songs. So of course Norton, as always, the friend he is, helps him out by playing the piano, giving him the songs. But before he plays the piano, he plays this little piece of music. Why do you always have to play that? Da, 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 da? What? Yeah. Goes, well, Dizzy Dean warms up before he goes to pitches a game. I gotta do it when I'm playing piano. So of course that ends up being the song that plays for him. It's actually, it's funny. I just recently watched it today, and at the end of it, the look on his face, you actually felt bad for him. Like you actually like, oh my, this is actually kind of sad. But it's such a brilliant episode. Like I said, it was my number one for a while. I went back and forth, I heat and hard over it. It doesn't matter. It's like Apple, they're both great episodes. But this to me, my number two, is $99,000 answer.
Love it. And love everything you said. And I will not comment because perhaps I will say something about that episode in the future.
Absolutely. And so you know what? The future is right here, Miguel. What's your number one? Let me guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's continue. Let's continue the chat.
Exactly. My number one is the $99,000 answer. And yeah, it's just that for me, that episode from the beginning to the end, it's like it had me in stitches nonstop because the way the scene opens, well, maybe the first couple of minutes, it's like it's the game show, it's the $99,000 answer, which by the way was based on, there was an actual quiz show that I think was called the $64,000 answer.
Yes.
So they were doing like a play on that, right? So it opens up by like, the show is on and it's a different contestant and he's answering all these questions about the dollar bill. The guy like knows everything. He's like a trivia like genius. So then they bring Ralph in and he's like so nervous. He comes on and he's like stiff as a board, he like waves at the, and then so when the host starts interviewing him, he's like, oh, Mr. Cramden, it says here that you live in Brooklyn. And he's like, my parents, they were there, I guess. He's so nervous, he can't say, yeah, I'm from Brooklyn, And he's like, Mr. Cramden, what do you do for a living? I bribe a bus. I dust a bride. So I was like, oh, you're a bus driver. So nervous, he just couldn't get anything out.
Right.
And then, so eventually he picks popular songs, but they run out of time. And it's like, we're going to come back next week. So again, like what you mentioned, that whole week, Ralph spent a fortune on renting a piano, sheet music, records. He had Norton come down and play piano for him. He just practiced and practiced. And by the way, another fun fact, Norton was actually really playing the piano. He was actually an accomplished pianist.
Yeah, he actually played a lot, believe it or not, on Johnny Carson's show. He would do a couple of numbers on Carson.
I've actually seen that. I love going on YouTube and watching like old Johnny Carson clips,
Me too. Yeah.
He's had I love watching like the Robin Williams clips. Those are classic.
Of course. Yeah.
But I've seen there was one episode that I saw with Jackie Gleason too, and one with Art Carney where he's playing the piano,
Yeah.
But yeah, that scene, Ralph got very big for his britches, and the thing is he really did study so much and he knew so much. When Mrs. Manicotti would come down and like sing like an Italian opera, he would like, he'd like, take me back to Sorrento. And she's like, I give up. And he's like, that's the way it goes.
You're right.
A mere bag of shells, and that's one of the funny things too, where he's like, Alice is trying to like, don't get too ahead of yourself. I'd be happy if you won the $600. And he's like, $600? Peanuts. What am I going to do with peanuts? And Alice is like, eat them like any other elephant.
Right.
So anyway, right through like that whole thing, and then at the end when like the one song, his first clue is the song that Ed used to play, right? Which is called Who Wrote Swanee River? And he was completely stumped. And at the end, he's like, time's running out. He's like, Ed Norton.
Right.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Cramden. So yeah, that for me is like, that's the number one for me. I just totally love that episode.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Like I said, it was my number one for a couple times. I went over it, and like I said, there's no wrong answer to this one because I think the top two episodes are the top two episodes of everybody's. It doesn't matter which way it goes, one or two. So as you see, my number one was your number two, which is Better Living Through TV. And you're right that what got over the top for me, Miguel, and this is just me. I laughed harder at this one than I did in 99,000 Answer. Don't get me wrong, 99,000 Answer, I laughed, but this one, that like you said, that final scene
Yeah.
where they're practicing, the brilliance of Gleason, where again it's live TV, just like it's live TV for them, it's live TV for everybody. Where they're practicing and something comes off of the gadget, and then the crowd starts clapping, and he looks at it. He's like, maybe we should say something about spearfishing.
He totally improv that line.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know. So it's so brilliant. And I think even before that, I think it gets a little lost because of how brilliant that ending scene is. But I think even before that, it's funny as well. Him, trying to get the money out of Alice, which is hilarious because are you gonna give me that $200? And she's like, no. He's like, I want to get you nice things. She's like, oh, I already have nice things. You remember No Cal Pizza? You remember the uranium fields in Asbury Park? So he always has these big ideas, and of course he gets despondent. He's like, "You don't love me. You've never
You've
loved me.
never loved me.
You only married me because of the way I looked in my uniform." So just
Put his
brilliant.
hat on and he walks out.
Yes, yes. So like I said, that's the only thing that got over the top from me.
Yeah.
Over 99,000 Answer. Like I said, it's like they're so close to each other in my opinion.
Totally.
So, but for me, I laughed harder, especially at that ending scene during Chef of the Future. And again, most people know of this episode as Chef of the Future, not Better Living Through TV. So, but yeah, this is to me is my number one. And like I said, there's no wrong answer. I think those two are heads. To me, Miguel, these two episodes are the heads and above over everything else that he did.
No doubt. Those were like the two great ones of an amazing series,
Yeah.
But just so hilarious. They're
Yeah.
just both of those guys, they were incredible artists,
Yes.
Both had Gleason, was 1 year shy of a 50-year career, and Art Carney had a 54-year career, and they had musical talent, they had comedic talent, and they could do drama. I don't know if you know this, but Art Carney, he won an Oscar for Best Actor.
Yes.
Let me see, I wrote it down. It was 1975 for Harry and Tonto.
Great movie. I've seen that movie. Tremendous.
I've never seen it.
Oh, you have to watch it.
He was in a bunch of movies like drama. He was an amazing actor. I did see him in some other things. And Gleason also was a tremendous dramatic actor. He was
The Hustler.
Best Supporting Actor, like 1962 with Paul Newman.
Yeah.
And his last film was in 1986. It was a really good film called Nothing in Common, and he co-starred with Tom Hanks.
Yes.
And he plays Tom Hanks's father, and they have a really tumultuous relationship. And it was a great story. And that was his last role. He was already battling cancer at that point, and he died the previous year, but they were both tremendous artists,
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up, Miguel. Like I said, they're obviously well known for this. But you're so right. They did so much more than this. You're right about Nothing in Common. To me, not enough people know about that movie regarding Tom Hanks. Obviously, and rightfully so. Mentioned the Forrest Gumps of the world, but early in his career, that movie is great. Very underrated. And you're right. And you see Gleason in that movie. See how sick he was. He's very frail. He's not the big man that he used to be. So it's kind of like almost shocking the way he looks in that movie, but it's very good. And you're so right. Both of them were brilliant. And like I said, they had these 39 episodes, but there's so much more out there with the lost episodes. And they kind of reconvened back in late 60s, early 70s, and tried to recreate kind of like the magic from the 50s. But nothing beats what they did here in 56. Like I said, he always tried to recreate it during his shows, but those episodes, those 39 are to me the gold standard of their not only their careers but of the Honeymooners.
Oh yeah, yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
So, is there what put it over the top for you? Is it because you laughed more with 99,000 Answer? Did you think that was more consistent than Chef
Yeah,
of the
well,
Future?
I had the same experience with you with Chef of the Future. Like that last part where they're in the kitchen. I
Yeah,
mean, like the guttural laughs, were so intense, But yeah, it's something about $98,000 Answer. Like that from the moment that Ralph appears,
yeah,
through that entire episode, it was just like nonstop laughter,
it is.
So yeah. But again, really for me, it's like 1A, 1B.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I he'd gnawed over it countless times, but like I said, I watched it both today to see what my initial reaction was going to be, and like I said, I laughed a little bit louder with the Chef of the Future. So, what's your top five Honeymooners episodes? Please like, comment, subscribe down below. You heard our top five. Miguel, thank you so much for joining me. You mentioned before you're involved in some food services. What else you got going on? Tell everybody what you got going on as far as your life going on.
Yeah, sure, Mike. So I've been cooking professionally for over 25 years.
You make a
And
great tiramisu. I will say that.
thanks. That was actually the first dessert I learned how to make,
Yeah, it's great.
No, thanks, man. Over the last 10 years, I've had like another career. And I've been offering my services as a healing guide and teacher. I
Okay.
trained in something called bioenergetics, which is it's a healing modality that helps people learn how to deal with their emotions better. It helps them work through maybe some of the challenges that they experienced, in their early years.
Right.
Anyway, I have a website. But I've been working with clients over the last 10 years, again, just helping them, just understand themselves a little bit more and ultimately bring more self-awareness and more healing from, just some of the wounds that we go through in our early
Yeah,
years.
that's awesome, Miguel.
I have a website that actually explains a little bit more about what I have to offer. And it's basically just, www.miguelrosell.com. It's my name. MiguelRossell.com. So yeah,
We'll definitely put that link below so people can go to it. I think that's great at what you're doing, Miguel, because especially in this day and age, especially what happened during COVID, I think, mental health these days and everything that you provide. And, even me, like, it's just like sometimes we get, we're getting older and like sometimes things from the past come up to the surface a little bit. I think what you're doing is great. And, I will definitely put up that link down below. I think that's awesome.
Thanks so much, Mike. And again, thanks so much for the invite today. This was
Great. A lot of fun. Yeah, I think we can do some more stuff here. Like I said, we have a lot of things in common. Like I said, with sports, with Knicks and Rangers, we could dive into a little of that. I don't know if you're still a big Morrissey Smiths guy. We can definitely dive into that. I've been listening back to his discography a little bit. Actually, my stepdaughter is a huge Smiths fan, so she's really gotten into the Smiths. So I think we can maybe dive into that. So I'd love to have you on again. Thanks so much for joining us, Miguel.
Oh, you're welcome, Mike.